Apple has launched Creator Studio, a $12.99 per month subscription that bundles Final Cut Pro, Logic Pro, Pixelmator Pro, and a bunch of other apps for Mac and for iPad. And this is quite literally the biggest update Apple has made to its Pro software in years. But it's also not for everyone. And to understand why, we need to talk about how Apple used to do things. Because this is either the best steal in creative software right now, or a slow erosion of something Apple got right for decades. This video is sponsored by the like button. Click it below to find out more. Here is something that might sound strange to younger creators. There was a time when you could buy software and just own it. Like forever. No monthly fees, no annual renewals, it was just yours. And if you picked up a Mac in the late noughties or the early 2010s, it came bundled with something called iLife, which is iMovie, GarageBand and iPhoto all for free. Apple also sold iWork separately, which is Pages, Numbers and Keynote as a one-time purchase. You hand over the cash and that was it, done. Then there was their professional tools, Final Cut Pro, Logic Pro, Motion and Compressor. And they weren't cheap, but the deal was the same. You pay once and you own it forever with all updates included. And for years, this felt like Apple's quiet middle finger to the subscription economy. While Adobe was busy converting everything to Creative Cloud and charging you monthly subs for the tools that you used for decades, Apple held firm. You want Final Cut? Buy it, it's yours. And then the iPad versions arrived. Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro for iPad launched as subscription-only apps. There was no one-time purchase option. And I remember at the time thinking, fine, whatever, it's just the iPad versions, right? The Mac apps are still the same and hooray for that. Apple Creator Studio bundles 10 apps in total. Final Cut Pro, Logic Pro, Pixelmator Pro, Motion, Compressor, MainStage, and the entire productivity suite across Mac and iPad. And the crucial detail is in that last bit. The Mac apps are still available as standalone purchases, but if you want the iPad versions, subscription is your only path. And that tells you everything about where Apple's head is at. They're no longer chasing Hollywood editors or legacy studio workflows. They are betting on a new wave of mobile creators who live on their iPads.
What you doing on your computer?
What's a computer?
People who want to shoot, edit and publish without ever owning or opening a laptop. And the pitch is flexibility. Work on your iPad when you're mobile, polish it up on your Mac when you need more horsepower, and sync everything between them. And honestly, it mostly delivers on that promise. And there's also a clear effort to weave AI into these apps, but in a way that doesn't feel invasive. The AI is there to assist, not to take over, which quite frankly is refreshing for what other software does at the moment. Final Cut Pro is basically my second home at this point. It's the primary video editor for all my long form YouTube content. And for years, updates to it have felt incremental. In November 2024, Apple moved away from version 10, which it had been on since 2011, to version 11, which felt like massive news at the time, but it only came with a handful of features, nothing that really made you sit up and pay attention. But Studio Creator looks to change that. And the standout feature for me is intelligent search. You can now search your entire library based on what's actually happening in those clips, whether that be visual content or just spoken words, because Final Cut automatically transcribes everything when you import it, and then you can just search for specific phrases or just vague concepts related to what you need. And it all happens locally. No internet connection required, no uploading your footage to some server, it just works on your machine. And quite honestly, it's a fantastic feature. Now, I typically add background music to my videos, which at times, getting the beats to match footage can be a real time sink. But now, Final Cut has this new feature called Beat Sync. What you do is you drop in a music track and it automatically maps out where the beat lands visually on your timeline. Then you snap your cuts to the rhythm without manually having to count the beats or do that thing where you kind of tap along a bit like a lunatic. This used to be tedious, but now it is genuinely quicker. However, the biggest change is to the iPad versions. Final Cut Pro on iPad has gone from what I would call an interesting experiment to, oh, I might have to buy an iPad to try this. Proper external display support is finally a feature, so you can edit on your iPad screen while your project previews are on a separate monitor. And if you're working on an 11-inch iPad, I imagine that's super handy. No more sort of squinting at the preview window the size of a postage stamp crammed next to your timeline. Background exports are here too, so you can finish a cut, kick off the export, and then keep working on something else while it renders in the background. And there's a live activity that tracks the progress so you're not left wondering. Before this update, you had to kick off an export and just sit there staring at a progress bar like it was 2008. The one thing iPad users are still waiting for is proper round trip support. So right now, you can have a project and move it from your iPad to your Mac, but not back again. And what I think creators really want is to start editing in their office, put their project onto an SSD, throw it in their bag with their iPad, and then keep working while mobile. Then come home and pick up exactly where you left off on your Mac. That workflow would probably be pretty incredible, and hopefully it's coming. Now, the genuine surprise in this whole package is Pixelmator Pro landing on iPad. Final Cut and Logic have been on iPad for a while, but Pixelmator Pro is brand new and it's arrived basically feature complete. You've got layers, masks, machine learning tools for background removal, advanced wrap features, and it's all there from day one. Combined with automatic background removal and iCloud sync, this might become your go-to image editor on iPad. Especially now that you can be exporting a video in Final Cut, flip over to Pixelmator, design a thumbnail while you wait, and publish everything without touching a Mac is genuinely impressive. And for me, it gives the iPad a step above what I use it for now, which is really just a Netflix screen. Logic Pro is probably the app in this bundle that I have used the least, aside from MainStage. There's a new chord ID feature that listens to whatever you record, whether it's from an instrument or a voice memo, and it automatically detects the chords. Then you pair that with session players, which are like AI-powered virtual bandmates that generate accompaniment based on your tracks, and you've got something Apple hopes is genuinely useful for musicians. And unlike Final Cut, Logic already supports full round-trip editing between Mac and iPad. Now, I don't know much more about Logic Pro or MainStage, and I'm sure there's some fantastic creators out there, so if you do live in those apps, I would recommend you go watch their videos, but after you hit subscribe on your way out from here, of course. Lastly, there's the productivity apps that are bundled into Pages, Keynote, Numbers, and Freeform. These are still all free on their own, but Creator Studio adds some AI features and access to something called Content Hub. Keynote can now generate entire presentations from an outline, so you give it your notes, you pick a theme, and it spits out slides complete with presenter notes for you to read from. Numbers has a magic fill feature that analyzes patterns in your data and suggests what should go into empty cells. But look, let's be real, right? Does anyone use Numbers, Pages, or Keynote outside of Apple themselves? Probably not. So the real gem here is Content Hub, which is a curated library of stock images, graphics, icons, and illustrations, and the quality is legitimately pretty good. Apple has clearly put thought into this rather than just dumping a folder of generic clip art or linking straight to Unsplash. Although it's odd to me that these assets aren't actually accessible from Final Cut or Pixelmator, because having stock graphics available when designing a thumbnail or building a video seems pretty obvious to me, and maybe that's coming. Alright, we need to talk about the uncomfortable bit. Subscriptions. I'm tired of them. I think most people are tired of them. Every app, every service, every tool wants a slice of your monthly budget. It adds up fast, and it's exhausting never truly owning the things that you pay for. But here's the point. If you're just starting out, $12.99 a month for this entire software suite is extraordinary value. Final Cut alone used to cost more than 2 years worth of subscription. Being able to access professional grade creative tools for less than the price of Netflix is objectively incredible. And you can cancel whenever you want. Being a monthly subscription, there is no commitment. The problem is if you already own some of these apps, which I do. Apple has said that all the new features coming to Creator Studio apps will eventually roll out to the standalone Mac apps. So what am I actually paying for? Essentially, it's the iPad versions of the apps you already have, plus some AI bells and whistles in Keynote and in Numbers, which really, does anyone use those? And if you don't use every app in this bundle, like I barely touch Logic on MainStage, then the maths gets harder to justify. So here is how that I break it down. If you are a mobile first creator, if you do serious work on an iPad, and if you're new to Apple's professional apps, Creator Studio makes a lot of sense for you. The value is there, the workflow is real, and Pixelmator Pro on iPad alone might be worth it for you. If you're already embedded in Adobe, or if you rely on some specific third-party plugins, or if your workflow is built around those tools, then this probably isn't going to lure you away. But regardless of where you land, this is the most significant movement we've seen in Apple's creative software for years. They're actually investing in these apps again. They're thinking about how modern creators are likely to work. And they're doing AI in a way that feels helpful rather than gimmicky. Now, they need to prove the subscription model earns its keep. That means consistent updates, meaningful features, not just coasting on launch momentum. And I do think they'll deliver, but I have been wrong before. Shock, I know. So I'm curious where you stand. Are you subscribing to Creator Studio? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more videos breaking down Apple creative tools and workflows, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Peace.